Today on the show, we'll find out what happened when an administrator attended a student's Genius Hour presentation about a new elective she wanted to see proposed. Spoiler alert, what happened was magic. We're continuing our elective series today, and I'm delighted to tell you that we've got a wonderful guest and passionate veteran teacher, Bethany Yuninger. You're about to hear some great stories and get inspired for new ways to connect with kids through projects and literature. I'm going to let Bethany reveal her elective in just a moment, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more. More creativity, more engagement, more joy, and no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. Well, welcome, Bethany. It's so nice to have you join me here on the pod.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Let's start with a little introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a teacher, maybe what you love most in your teaching, and then let us know about the elective that you're going to be sharing today?
Yes, of course. Well, I am a veteran teacher in South Central Pennsylvania. And of course, it sounds a little trite, but the thing I love most about teaching in general is making relationships with the students. And with all sincerity, I really do believe that we are influencing the future positively by sharing our talents with these kids and helping them really achieve their potentials or make another step on their road to what they're going to do that's going to make this world a better place. So that's what I really love about it. And this particular elective, African American literature, is something I'm really excited about because it came from a student. We in the English department had always wanted to do some sort of multicultural lit course or something of that sort, but never really gained any traction with our ideas. And I was very fortunate to have a young woman named Halima Karoma in my class when she was a 10th grader. And we had been doing a series of passion projects that we labeled the Informed Citizen Project, where the kids had to look around their world and see a problem, research it, and try to figure out why it hadn't been solved yet, and then offer some solution. Maybe not a solution to the whole problem, but a step in the right direction that we could actively get involved in right now. And so she was very concerned with the othering of people of color in the country at the time and throughout history. And she had gone through a couple of different ideas that were good. And then she landed on, why don't we have an African American studies course? Because we have courses like Holocaust studies, and we have a mandate to study things at the high school level that involve oppression. So she made the presentation in favor of this sort of course. And fortunately for her and for me, I had invited our administrators to come and listen. And the gentleman who was listening that day happened to be our assistant superintendent, who at my school at the time was the curriculum coordinator. And so at the end of her presentation, he, of course, congratulated all the students and told them they all did a good job. But he sought her out and he asked her, how many people she had shared this idea with besides me. And she said, well, I had shared it with some counselors. And he said, when was that? And she said, well, it was a few weeks ago. And he handed her his business card and said, I don't take a few weeks to get back to people. I'm going to be sending paperwork to Mrs. Yuninger today. Very well done. Let's do something with this. And so that was the way that this whole ball started rolling, was that young woman and her fantastic presentation. And of course, I was more than willing to do the work to develop the course. And the unfortunate part of that was that she graduated before the course was approved by the board. So she didn't get to take it. And I feel so bad about that. However, she annually Zooms in or comes in and speaks to my classes and tells them her story and the story of how the class was created to help motivate them to see that, if they really care about something, they can make a positive impact on the world.
Oh my gosh. I'm just getting chills. This is the coolest origin story for an elective that I've ever heard.
It is rather wonderful.
How exciting. So it was the product of Genius Hour in your class. I feel like we could spend a whole episode just talking about that. It sounds like such an impactful project, but we've already committed. We're going to talk about the elective. Wow. So let's start with the big picture view of this elective. As you set it up, based on her vision and with, I'm sure, what came out of the process of that approval period, what were kind of the goals of the class? How did you hope that it would impact students? And how did she hope that it would impact students?
Yeah, well, the main goal was to, like I said, try to combat the othering of any, group of people, but specifically Black folks in America, and to also fill in the gaps in our curriculum that are there because of a variety of reasons and not because of ill intent, but oversight and a lack of time. And so what we did was we took a look at a bunch of curriculum that was available, a bunch of course guides and syllabi that were available online. And I just talked to as many people as I possibly could, getting their input, my friends who teach in college and teach in other high schools and my students. And I just pulled them all and said, what do you really want out of an African American lit course? And so as a result of that, the main goal was number one, to make sure that kids know the big names that they should know when it comes to the evolution of American literature from African American authors. And then also to celebrate all of the genius and all of the beauty, and to not simply focus on the tragic or the unfortunate or the infuriating aspects of history. So that's the big goal overall, to get kids exposed and to give them a jumping off point so that if they find something that really interests them, they can take it farther. Because we only see them for 12 weeks. I work in a trimester schedule, so it's a mile wide and an inch deep.
Powerful and brief. I love those course goals. And I'm excited to zoom in now a little bit and just sort of go through the quick version of how you've laid this all out with the goal of both exposure and celebration. What were some of your key texts? How did the class kind of look and feel?
Well, it's an interesting story. I was initially told that I would be able to have a class text, a class fiction text. And, from the result of my polls, I had asked if I could use The Hate You Give. And I was given a verbal, yeah, that's a great idea. But then when it came to filling out the paperwork, I was told that we need to just wait, see how it goes, and circle back to it. And I am not yet on cycle for circling back to it with our curriculum revision schedule. I know it's very frustrating.
So, did they say that text specifically, or they're just not going to be able to pay for a text?
Oh no, that text specifically, my husband and I offered to buy the text
Oh my
for the
gosh.
class.
Okay.
Yes. But it's a very particular time in our history, and it's a very particular area that I live in. And so
Yeah.
the goal, I know, was to make sure that the course continuously ran and established a good reputation, and then could combat perhaps any pushback that might come from a text that is adopted eventually.
Yeah.
However, I was approved to use the Norton Anthology of African American Literature, third edition, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Lots and lots of very, very wonderful literature within it, and it's well edited, and it has scholarly introductions to eras. So what I did was I chose to start out the class as high interest as possible and give the kids as much choice as possible by starting out with modern lit from them. And so we begin with a poetry unit that's focused on music and song lyrics, and we go into, reviewing the process of analysis with poetry. And they bring in the lyrics to songs that are school appropriate and that they like and that mean something to them. And that's what they start off with a celebration of why they like it, and then deeper dive into how it makes the impact it makes. And then from there, we take an assessment of the social and cultural constructs that are conveyed within those works. And we have conversations about what they feel about those concepts and constructs, and what they see and what maybe they unwittingly perpetuate and what they want to see and what they would like to be seen as. And so from those conversations, we start developing a set of questions that are largely geared around, well, how did we get here? And so then we go back in time to the 15 and 1600s, and our books are very nice. We have both volumes, which is nice. And so we can go back all the way to the vernacular tradition. It's a pretty seamless transition there, and take a look at things like the blues and work songs and word games and the dozens and spirituals, and see the connections up through history. And then we take a chronological approach through the eras as they are laid out in the book.
Nice. So I love that beginning. I mean, giving students that personal connection through their music seems like such an effective way to kick it off.
Yeah,
And then, as you say, you have this lovely, rich source in the Norton. It's maybe like a little bit more intimidating than a book like The Hate You Give. But you're doing what you can in the situation that you're in, and that's kind of like that's what we have to do right now, right? I mean, we can't control the politics of our communities, but we can use our voices how we can. So, I mean, I
absolutely.
I admire that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm interested to hear just a little story from the elective. You've been teaching it for a while. I've heard you tell me that it's very popular, that it has 4 full sections right now, for example.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about maybe a student or a group of students or a project, just like some moment in the elective that you found has been really impactful?
Well, we do a passion project within this elective as well. And I just find that they're so rich. I've been doing them since I started my career in 2000. And I really love the materials that you provide because that makes it so much easier.
Thank you.
Although
I'm
I
so
had my own
glad.
materials, I never make anything pretty like you do. I've got the content, but I don't have the bedazzle. So that's great. Uh, but the students come up with the most amazing, wonderful things. And one young woman, okay, so the way that I anchor the passion project is we start with that music, and we have a collective music page that I use to warm them up then. So all the students, they record the links for the songs that they choose for analysis on a shared document. And then every day that they come to class, we start class in the first 5 minutes by listening to one of their songs and just free writing and making connections between what they hear in the song and what's going on in their life right now. And so we also have an independent novel. So the kids who want to read The Hate You Give can.
Oh, yay.
And
Way to go.
well, thank you. So the students that, oh, by the way, that our music project was also how I got around the fact that they told me I couldn't include a hip hop unit, which was
Oh,
soul
wow.
crushing.
No hip
but
hop unit, and that would
but
go so well with The Hate You Give.
but but the kids get it because they get it in the
Yeah,
poetry, and it's student choice, and so it all works out.
good for
But
you.
within that first 5 minutes of class every day, I'm always asking them to make connections to things that we've been learning about in class, and also stuff that's going on in their life that's important to them. And from that, we develop this idea of, is there something that you're passionate about that you can connect to the music, that you can connect to the novel that you're reading? And so between the novel and the music, the students select a topic. And, it's not always, strictly speaking, about African American only topics, right? But a
Sure.
lot of times it comes through the lit. And these are human issues that a lot of us deal with, that the kids really care a lot about. And so out of that passion project, I've had so many really, really cool projects. One that pops out to me is a girl had read a work of Zora Neale Hurston, in which Zora Neale Hurston had interviewed the last living man who could remember having lived in Africa. And she recorded his part of the interview in dialect. She had written it the way he sounded instead of the, standard traditional spelling of the words that he was saying. And that particular aspect of the book really inspired my student. And she thought how important and valuable that is not only to the person being interviewed, but perhaps even more so to all the other people in their life and around them. So she took that idea and went to our local assisted living facilities and asked their program directors if they would mind if she could interview some of their residents. And so she contacted, we have several in the area, and she contacted several, and some of them were all for it. And so she went in and she did interviews with different people about their recollections of, just growing up in their time periods. And she recorded it in their dialect as much as she could and compiled it all together in a kind of living history book that she then disseminated to their families. And I thought, what a way, what a way for
Wow.
a kid to engage, to learn, to give back. And that was her idea. That's what she wanted to do. It's just, those are the sorts of things that give me chills.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I absolutely love that. That is so cool. Passion projects, Bethany, passion
They're amazing.
projects. Yes.
They're
Oh
amazing.
my
And when the
gosh.
kids do things that they didn't think that they could do in the beginning, that really gets me. When they
Yeah.
don't believe that they can. And then even just with picking up, like you said, the admittedly intimidating Norton anthology and opening to one of those scholarly articles that begins an era. And the students look at the page and they look at the words and they look at me and they're like, Miss, what are you
You
doing?
must be joking.
I was like, no, you could do this. Don't think
Yeah.
you can't do this. Just because
Yeah.
you haven't before, there's no reason to say that you're not going to do it right now. Let me help you. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it's just those little moments too, not a big project, but just those little moments where the kids get through a paragraph and they look at me at the end. And it took time and it took energy, but they knew what it meant, and they were able to put it in their own words and tell the rest of the class, because that's the way we do most of our learning. I tell them straight up, I am a white woman from rural Pennsylvania. I am not an expert in African American lit, but I'm learning. And I am more than happy to learn alongside you. And so, what the general structure is in the course is, for each era, we together tackle that introduction. We look for characteristics, and then each of the students selects one author from that era, researches them, reads their writing, looks for the characteristics of the era in their writing, and prepares a little mini presentation. It's just informal, but they prepare slides or some other means of putting a visual to their ideas. And then we sit kind of in a big semicircle and just share what we've learned. And that's the way the class runs on the daily.
I love that. That is so cool. You're putting them in the driver's seat with you, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's when kids learn the most, is when they feel like they're empowered. Their voice is just as important.
Oh, and they are.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to finish by just asking you what advice you would give to another teacher wanting to launch either this elective or maybe a single unit within another course that's inspired by this elective. Obviously, it wasn't like a completely simple road to start teaching this, and so really you have some wisdom to share here. Like, what wise words would you share with another teacher?
Lean on your friends, your colleagues, and your advocates. There are people who are going to back you up and who are going to help you out. I have to give a big shout out to my friend Carol Allen, a recently published author, but also another veteran teacher who was really integral to my development of this class over many breakfasts and cups of coffee. And I'm very much indebted to her and her wisdom and insights. But definitely lean on your friends, because trying to start something from scratch is daunting, particularly if it wasn't your focus or your major. And it's not impossible or insurmountable, and will always be better if you do it with the input of all of the smart people around you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Bethany.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks so much for joining us today in this inspiring exploration of Bethany's African American elective. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss our continuing elective series. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.